So it's Federico Tavella, American Sign Language Acquisition via Imitation Learning.
So the objective of our research is to approach the acquisition of skills in a more human-like fashion, because like most of you already know that deep learning, it's very good, achieves very high performance, but it's very different compared to how human learns. And the reason why we want to do this is because in robotics right now, one of the main limitations is that how robots acquire skills to interact with other robots or with humans is very limited, and it's usually pre-programmed, while a more optimal approach will be something like I demonstrate an action to the robot, and the robot is able to replicate that. And in literature, there are some very interesting approaches which are related to generating animations for like video or video games that use motion capture data and reinforcement learning to teach virtual avatars how to perform certain actions. So what we want to do is try to teach to a robot American Sign Language. We think it's a very interesting study case because the motions in sign language are very precise and convey a meaning. So it's not just about performing an action, but it's also being able to replicate exactly the same action and the same movements. And what you saw is basically the Asimo robot, but speaking Japanese sign language, but all the movements were pre-programmed. So it's basically just a demo. And what we did was basically, first of all, learning a bit about sign language, because personally, before this project, I knew basically nothing about it. And so we scraped some data, and then we tried to perform imitation based on that data. So what we can find online is data sets of people demonstrating how to perform a specific sign, and other informations like, for example, phonological properties of sign language. And this is, we think this is very interesting because sign language recognition so far has been approached in an end-to-end fashion. So take the video and predict the word, while having some intermediate representation of the signs could help also in the interpretability of the prediction, right? Because if we have multiple classes, for example, for the word airplane, we have that you have to perform your sign with one hand in a specific location with a specific number of fingers, we can understand better why a prediction is wrong, or maybe because it's correct. And so what we did was cross-referencing these two data sets, and we obtained a quite small set, less than 1,000 samples, and we had for each word the associated phonological properties. And what we did from them was extracting motion data from the videos and performing classification. So we trained a different classifier over each phonological class. So in this case, for example, we predicted if the sign was one-handed or two-handed, the movement was symmetrical or asymmetrical, and where the sign was executed. And from there, we went for a more complex approach. So we expanded our data set. Instead of having a single example for each word, we had multiple examples for each word. We predicted more phonological classes, and we used more complex models. For examples, instead of using just recurrent neural network, we moved on spatiotemporal convolutional graph network, which are particularly suited for this task because the key points of the human body can be represented through a graph. And finally, we took the data that we extracted from the videos, so basically rotations of the human joints and the positions, and we trained a reinforcement learning algorithm to imitate the motion that is performed. So here you can see the example, the mesh that we extracted, and this is the results of the agent trained on this motion. And so the movement is quite good. We train it to replicate both the pose of the hand and try to reproduce at the same speed. Unfortunately, they're not very synced right now. And the last step of the project will be integrating the two components. So trying to learn policies that can integrate full body motion, hand motion, and try to see if there is a more efficient way of learning different signs. Because, for example, you could teach a single policy to imitate one sign, but you could also fragment how the sign is performed. So dividing, for example, the body movement and the hand movement, and train different policies and put them together to perform the sign. So that's everything. Thank you. And if you want to get in touch, there is email, or you can scan the QR code for LinkedIn or Twitter.
Thank you so much for taking time this morning.